Is it Friday already? Has another week already gone by? Is it time for the after show once again? I'm Jeff. That's that Valkyrie girl, Megan, over there. And we are back here on the after show brought to you by the Geeks and Company to talk about the Legend of Vox Machina. This week, we're going to be looking at season 3, episodes 7, 8, and 9, because Amazon Prime is still not doing us any favors and still dropping 3 episodes every week. So there are 12 episodes in the season. This is week 3. We'll be looking at the next 3 episodes. As I said, 7, 8, and 9. Megan, how are you this week? Are you ready to talk about it? Because we talked about the pre-show. A lot happened.
A lot happened, so we're just gonna get to that, right? Because I feel like I need to work through some things.
We definitely need to work through some things. So yes, episode 7, which was called Cloak and Dagger, featured a lot to do with Percy and Ripley. In fact, we start off with a bit of a backstory for Ripley. So again, we are starting
exactly what I always wanted, just an emotional, sympathetic backstory for this piece of shit villain.
We are getting a backstory for Ripley. Now, it is a rather quick flashback, and again, I'm not sure on the timing on this one. Definitely seemed better than the timing on the one that we talked about before with Allura and Kima, kind of making us care about Kima after Kima had already been in peril. I feel like this one works better for me anyways. We already don't like Ripley, but now we're getting some indications as to why Ripley is the way she is. I like this type of flashback, and it wasn't very long. We're basically
it wasn't very long. That's true. That was her
village was attacked by a bunch of mages. Her father was killed in front of her, along with a lot of the rest of her village, which is a recurring theme throughout Vox Machina. The same thing happened to Vex and Vax. The same thing happened to Percy. So we're seeing some parallels with the villain and some of the other characters.
I was going to say, and somehow the rest of those characters didn't turn out to be complete and utter dicks.
No. Some of them I would argue are minor dicks. So so we do go back to Whitestone, which is now pretty much no more. And they figured out that it was a bit of a ruse, the baby dragon attack, so that Ripley could come in and steal some Percy called obsidian thermite, which is just 2 words that actually don't relate to each other, just jammed together because it sounds cool. But it sounds like some kind of rock that has some thermal power to it of some kind, because we do find out that Ripley is using it to build this huge battery to run a factory to make a bunch of guns.
Yep, because that's what they want to do. That's super important. Story that we're telling overall. Love that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it is pretty much contained to this particular episode.
Yes, it is.
And we do get a resolution to that particular arm of the story, as it were. Pun intended, of course.
Kind of.
Mostly. We'll get to that in a second. We get a brief update with Scanlan and his daughter. He does go to the place where she was. She is no longer there. And he just goes, well, I give up. I have a question, by the way, because in the early parts of this episode, we get to see Trinket again. In fact, we see Trinket a few times in the course of these episodes. I feel like there's something I'm missing, because we're into season 3 now, and every single time we see Trinket, it's always like, Trinket, you stay back with the families and protect them, or Trinket, you stay over here. Trinket literally never goes on the adventure with them. It feels like it's an in-joke, maybe from their original show, and I just don't know enough about Critical Role to know what the in-joke is. The fact that they literally never bring Trinket, this giant armored warbear that would come in handy in so many different ways on so many different adventures. They're always like, no, Trinket, you have to stay back behind.
Justice for Trinket.
If there's an in-joke that I'm not familiar enough with Critical Role to know what this is, not even just Trinket's fine. He just never gets to go adventuring with the rest of them. Like, is he part of Vox Machina or is he not? Because when you first start watching the show back in season 1, you're just assume he's part and parcel, and like every now and then they just leave him behind. And now in the middle of season 3, I'm like, he always gets left behind. Is it really that expensive to animate a bear?
There should be more bear. I demand more Trinket.
There's got to be some kind of an... Guys, if you know why we don't get to see any of Trinket out with the rest of the group, please go ahead and put it down in the comments below. Is it just a simple fact that everybody else is a voice actor, and of course Trinket's a bear? We do get a lot of Percy and Vex having some friends with benefits issues. Now it's flip-flopped again. So now Percy is the one that's sort of pressing for some type of definition to what they are. He wants to tell the group.
Yeah.
Vex is like, we can't tell the group, it would change everything. And meanwhile, the group is standing like 30 feet from them going, they think we don't know that they're banging all over the place all the time. We know they're together, but they think we don't know. Like, even Grog knows.
Even Grog knows.
So I think it's funny watching their kind of interaction back and forth where they're just like tormenting themselves about whether or not they should tell everybody. Everybody's like, these idiots don't think we know they're banging. Clearly
These doopuses.
And then we get what I think in these types of media is a big, huge dolloping helping of foreshadowing. Percy drops the I love you to Vex, and Vex looks shocked and doesn't know what to do and is buying for time, and then suddenly gets called away conveniently, and then, you know, adventure at that point ensues.
Yep.
Never gets a chance to say it back to Percy in that moment. Percy lets it start out is why he's been pushing for some type of definition or wanting to tell the group, because he is in love with her. And then they get hit with some fear gas, which they were calling later on delirium gas, which is, if you're familiar with Batman, it's very, very similar to the Scarecrow's gas, the fear gas that the Scarecrow uses. So you can see they're all seeing hallucinations of things that they fear the most, until Pike realizes there's something in her blood, as the demon dude had mentioned to her when she was in hell and she got out. He even says it to the dude, that his big demon dude, like, there's something in her blood. She doesn't even know what it is. And instead of relying on the Everlight to try to clear everybody's contagion of this fear gas, this delirium gas, she just literally wipes her blood on individual members of the group, and that clears the gas. By the way, there's zero explanation for what this is. So this is, again,
it's very, very tired.
Some foreshadowing ahead. I think we're going to find out in the next 3 episodes what it is about Pike and her blood that's allowing her to have this effect. And by the way, this does kind of catch up a little bit in episode 9, but we'll get to that. Oh, we do see, by the way, guns are effective against other guns. So we found the thing that guns are effective against. Other people with guns. That seems to be the only thing they're effective against, which again has called into question Percy's effectiveness in the group, because he just shoots at things and those things just don't fall down because they're armored or they're scaled or they're magical or they're shielded or they're wizards or whatever. But against just other vanilla mortals with guns, other guns seem to work great. Right up until...
I mean, to be fair, the gun is still effective. It's just not the one we want to be effective.
Then we come to the moment that, I mean, I guess is the sort of the cliched moment that happens every time. By the way, it's already happened once on this show where Percy has Ripley at his mercy after this huge back and forth gun battle, after having a confrontation with the demon that used to infest Percy that's now infecting Ripley. Percy finally wins the battle, has Ripley at his mercy, decides to let her live, explains that she could be a force for good in the world, and it looks like she's just about to buy into what Percy is trying to say. And spoiler alert of all spoiler alert, kids, Megan, what happens?
Percy gets shot. Because when you have the person who has betrayed you multiple times and is infested with a demon at a spot where you can shoot them, you should just shoot them.
You probably should. Now, again, it's sort of like the cliche conundrum. He is a hero, quote unquote. He is supposed to be a good guy. Shooting a villain that you've beaten, that's unarmed, that's clearly at that particular moment not a threat, is a really bad look. But it would result in a dead villain and a live hero, and not what we get, which is a live villain and a dead hero. By the time they get to Percy, he has shuffled off this mortal coil. Megan, what were Percy's last words? He says one word as he's dying. One word.
I think I was too busy being angry. I didn't even know he had last words.
He says Vex, and then he dies.
Emotions.
Yes. So he gets the chance to tell Vex he loves her, and he dies with her name on his lips. And Pike does get there, tries to heal him in her super dodgy ass, sometimes working, mostly not healing ability. And she says that he's already gone. This is a land of myth and magic, so for a lot of this, I was just expecting them to be able to bring him back in some way, shape, or form. But
so I don't know if worry is the right word. Because he was shot, I think that his soul is in the demon.
Yeah, perhaps.
Back and forth that they had, that any of the souls that are killed by the guns go to Orthax?
Or no, I think you're right. I think it's Orthax. My assumption here was that was the guns that were made in that particular, not the. I thought that was her gun, like a different gun. I might be misinterpreting that though. That I don't know. It's interesting. I didn't put that together. That his soul might still be available because his body is not. So nope. By the way, Percy dies. Cue the ballad. Got to play the ballad. Slow song comes on. We all feel bad for Percy. Fade to black. Episode 8 cues up, which is called Siege and Silence. And we start off with another flashback. Again, a rather quick one.
Yep.
This wasn't long, but this was a chance to see how the group originally meets Percy. And we get a sense, I think, in this case, not only was Percy like a late ad, because you can see pretty much the entire rest of the group is there. But it doesn't even seem like it was that long ago. Like the rest of the group looks like what they looked like when we met them in season 1.
Yeah.
So I don't get the sense that, like, not only is Percy a late ad, I don't get the sense that Percy's been around even a very long time. Like the group was clearly already well established. They were in the middle of what sounded like almost like a rescue operation or a bounty of some kind. Turns out the guy they were after was dead. Percy tells them the truth while he's still locked up, and they decide that's enough to have him join the group. And we get to see that Percy is now shoveled off this mortal coil. His body is interred in a coffin. The coffin has his likeness etched out in the front of it, much like the ancient Egyptian kings. And that's when Scanlan comes back and goes, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And immediately says, "Where's Percy?" And Scanlan gets to be sad with literally everybody else.
Yep. Everyone's sad. Everyone's super sad.
Everyone's super sad.
Vex is the most sad.
Vex is inconsolable. She has the arrowhead that Percy had given her, and she's just absolutely weeping uncontrollably next to his coffin while everybody else is sort of mourning in their own way, mostly sort of paired up with someone that can offer them some kind of succor or comfort. And I guess, like, I remember distinctly watching the movie watching the movie Serenity. And spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen Serenity, but a major character in that film dies. And they die, like they're dead. And I remember them talking afterwards to the writer and director of that film. And they were like, why kill that character specifically? You upset a lot of fans. Like, that character was a fan favorite. Why kill them? And the writer said, I wanted people to know that there's actual stakes involved. If all the heroes are fine all the time, then there's never really any danger. No one's ever afraid that someone's not going to make it through. Killing off that character made you realize, hey, anybody can die. And now, of course, we've been through shows like Game of Thrones and others where you're seeing main characters and even like prominent side characters getting off left, right, and center.
Yeah, they're just like, nah.
Yeah. So I feel like this, for me anyway, it did kind of accomplish that. Like, I kind of kept on waiting for them to find a way to bring Percy back in an episode or two, and they didn't. Percy in this episode is still dead. He is interred, and everybody is mourning Percy's death. Everybody is very upset that Percy's gone. So kudos to the show to making us feel like, yeah, man, like we're playing for real stakes. Yeah. People can die. Again, this is a world of magic, though. So would I be surprised if we get to see Percy again? No. How they go about doing that, as Megan said, maybe it's something to do with his soul being trapped in the demon. Maybe Ripley comes back and has a conscious after all. It helps. Who knows? We don't know. We do not find out in this series of episodes, guys. So I can give you a little foreshadowing. By the end of the 9th episode, which we're talking about today, he's still dead. So
yep,
he's not coming back.
Still dead.
And then in a bit of a cliche, which Megan, you would sort of message me. I didn't love this, but again, at least I understand it. Vax tries to comfort Vex, and when he sees what an absolute wreck Vex is, not just because Percy is dead, but because Vex knows she had an opportunity at true happiness, at finally opening herself up and allowing herself to feel these things for somebody else, but because of their father and the way they were raised, She doesn't. She keeps herself closed off, and now she's having regrets. Vax realizes he's done the exact same thing with Keyleth, so he goes back to Keyleth, and they finally, at the very least, finally hook up based on the experience with Percy and Vex. And Megan, you look so annoyed by that entirety.
I was so annoyed with that. I'm like, listen, it makes the entire plot line that they built out with Percy and Vex feel like the only reason they had that relationship built was for it to come crashing down so that Vax and Keyleth can finally get together.
I see that. I can see that point. Now, I will admit, I do see more, like, it's been actually a really good opportunity for character development for Vex, which I feel like was desperately needed on this show. Like, instead of her just vixening herself around and calling people darling and shooting a bow, now, like, she has some depth of character. Now she has some emotion. Now we're starting to see why she's so aloof and why she's so laissez-faire with everything, because she's been trying to keep a polite distance from everybody, knowing she still needs people to help her, but keeping a distance from everybody so she doesn't get close, because, as she puts it, everybody I love is destroyed. Everybody that I come to love ends up dying or is dead. And this is just yet another example of that happening, because we find out in this episode as well that Thordak is the dragon that killed Vex and Vax's mother and burned their town. So This is, the whole thing is coming full circle.
It all comes back around.
As we talked about, as far as the Chroma Conclave goes, by the way, I don't know if we've ever sort of described this, but like in Dungeons and Dragons, there are evil dragons, and they're called chromatic dragons, and they're just based on colors: red, blue, green, white, and black. And each one would have their own set of powers and such. And yes, typically the red dragons were the biggest and the loudest and the most powerful of those subsets of dragons. By the way, there are good dragons as well, which we've not seen on the show. The metallic dragons are the good dragons, and for whatever weirdo reason, we've never seen the golds, the coppers, the brass, the silvers, the bronze. So I don't know if that's something they're going to be able to like incorporate later on, because they've been very good about showing the chromatic dragons and what their powers are like, what their breath weapons are like. They've been very faithful to the Dungeons and Dragons versions of the chromatic dragons. That's why they're called the Chroma Conclave. But now we're down to two. We're down to Thordak, and of course we're down to Raishan. And then they decide that if they're going to make a stand against Thordak, if they're going to go after Thordak, they can't do it alone. And Grog, of all the people there, coming up with a plan. Hey,
multiple plans.
What if
Grog was just ripe with plans this episode?
Grog was grogging it hardcore. By the way, we can still get some classic Grog moments in these three episodes as well. There's one thing. There's one I'm going to mention a little bit later on, the next one, that I just absolutely love. But in this one, they decide that they're going to gather as much of an army as they can. And so cue the montage. We haven't had a good montage moment in quite some time. So we get a gathering of the troops montage, including Vex. She decides she goes back to Singorn and try to recruit the Singorn army that her father controls, thousands of elves, based on her new knowledge that Thordak is the dragon that killed her mother, who was, of course, her father's wife. Human wife, I believe, because I believe Vex and Vax are half-elven.
She's got the circular ears, the curvy ears. Not the
so Vex manages to, I guess we would say, work out her daddy issues and gets her father to see the light. For the most part. Again, this is all post-Percy, so she also is able to identify with her father finally, because her father had fell madly in love with Vex's mother, his wife, and then she was taken from him. Same thing happens to Vex with Percy, so she can relate to him on a deeper level now, and understands that a lot of why she's closed off is because he did the exact same thing when their mother died, when Vex's mother died. So that's sort of where she learned it from. So she's able to connect with him on that level, gets through to him finally, like, we have a chance to avenge my mother, your wife's death. We need to do this. And he finally comes around and agrees in a moment that's very much like Helm's Deep in the Two Towers, where it looks like all is lost, and then up on a hill they look up and they hear a war horn. On the fifth day, look to the east, and there's the elves coming into Helm's Deep to help defend. Very much, very, very similar to that when the elves show up. And then, of course, Raishan appears one final time here in this episode and tells them, can't go through the front entrance. It's not going to work. But there is ye old unprotected back entrance. Wink, wink.
As there always is.
Nudge, nudge. Don't be dirty. Don't be dirty. Unprotected back entrance. You guys are terrible. Just then, Thordak shows up.
Sure does.
They fly there. They're going to go. So again, the entirety of the army is going to make a frontal assault and try to keep the dragonlings busy. They're assuming Thordak is in his lair. They found a back entrance into the lair provided to them by Rayshon, and they're going to try to attack Thordak with the vestments from behind through this little secret tunnel lair. That's this secret tunnel that's going to be into the lair that will also contain the dragon eggs. So
eggs. Yep.
They're trying to get a twofer, if you will, by taking out Thordak and the eggs. Unfortunately, Thordak knew they were coming, because as they get close to what should be the front door is surrounded by
all the baby dragons.
All the dragonlings. But they're not attacking. They're just hanging out. They're not doing anything.
They're just there being dragons.
Creating smoke, obscuring vision, as our intrepid heroes are flying towards the back entrance. In the front entrance, while the baby dragons are just chilling out, the ground starts to rumble. And Bertie McBurnface starts burning the shit out of everybody in sight. And he's being real, he's not being real judicious about who he's burning. You get some fire, and you get some fire. Everybody gets some fire.
Everybody gets some fire.
Everyone, it's another one of those. Again, I know it seems like, especially for this season, I'm trashing on the cliches and the tropes. I'm not. It's just with this show, it's easy to recognize sometimes. Like, this is the point in the show where literally everyone is fucked. Like, everyone is up against it. When the intrepid heroes get to this back entrance, they find it has been closed off. It's been melted over. And recently, too, the stone is still hot.
It's still hot.
Again, because Thordak knew they were coming. This does mean that the eggs are unprotected, but they're inside the lair, which is surrounded up top through the main entrance by all of the little mini dragons. And Thordak is still out front of the lair, whooping all kinds of ass. And things look terrible.
And that's when they're like, we need to figure out what we're going to do. Everyone's freaking out. And Grog comes in with another plan.
A brilliant plan, which I'd like to point out, he immediately forgets afterwards and said he blacked out and asked what was going on. But in that moment, you go kick Thordak's ass, and you go and we'll go do the eggs, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. And Scanlan's like, wow, man, that was great. He's like, what are you guys talking about? I just blacked out for a second. What's happening? And it looks like, so now we get, the problem is it's just too much. The army out front is not enough to handle Thordak with or without vestments. Half of the vestments they don't even have because they're up in a different place. They're just not beating Thordak, along with the mini dragons that are still kicking around. Anyways, they are trying to get behind them, but they can't. It's been blocked off. And then the two thieves, Cash, and I don't remember the red girl's name, they show up, blow a hole in the wall for them, and give them some sort of yes, exactly. She says, I believe, let's clear a lane, or let's make a lane, or whatever, as they're zipping around in her little red disc. And again, I keep getting reminded of other movies while I'm watching this, but there's a moment in Independence Day where Bill Pullman is playing the president, and there's all these fighter jets and there's all these UFOs in front of him, and he's like, gentlemen, let's clear the road. And they go through and they're shooting all the things. And I was like, oh, that's pretty much what this is. They're like clearing a way for them to get through. And then my favorite part of the 3 episodes, can you guess what my favorite part of the 3 episodes would be? It was only for about a second, but
Scanlan's hand.
Scanlan's hand. We do get to hear Scanlan's hand, and Scanlan's hand comes through. And at that point, too, we're still finding that this plate that's supposed to be really effective against dragon fire specifically is still being a pain in the ass for Pike. She still can't seem to. She can seem to absorb the fire.
Yeah, but she can't like control the.
She can't redirect it and control it, and so she's having a hard time, with taking out some of her own friends with that. Rayshon is seen at the battle. By the way, the entire time, Keyleth has been like, fuck that bitch. I don't trust her. She's terrible. She's awful.
Yep.
Who told her this? Who told her that? What's going on? Then we get to see, unfortunately, Cash, the guy with the mismatched eyes, it gets cashed out. He is now spare change. He gets stomped pretty good by Thordak.
He got squished.
Interestingly enough, we do get to see his ghost, which we've not seen before. It's interesting that Percy just died, and we did not get to see his ghost. We didn't get to see what happens to his soul, which lends to your theory, by the way, that his soul may still be available, because Cash's soul got taken by the matron. If you guys remember who the matron is, that is essentially the vestment that Vax wears, is her raiment. The matron is the matron of death.
Yeah.
And ravens and crows and such. So he gets taken off by the matron, his soul, I'm assuming, to the ever after, whatever, because his body is clearly unavailable at the moment, as it is squishy paste. Excuse me. We do get to see Keyleth go Super Saiyan. She takes on her fire
demon
persona something.
Yeah.
She even gives us a "Let's fucking go," which again reminded me of Deadpool and Wolverine. This whole movie was just so many different things. Pike still having a problem with the plate. Tries to use the plate again. Still can't use the plate. Still having a hard time. She gets a pep talk from the red girl. Scanlan.
Oh no.
Scanlan and Grog are still trying to destroy eggs at this point. They're trying to destroy as many of the eggs as they can, but some of the dragonlings are hatching while this is happening. Scanlan gets set upon by a baby dragon, and how does Scanlan get out of this? What does he do? Come on, you want to say it.
Lightning dick.
Dick lightning is actually what he says. Dick lightning! And lightning literally comes out of his dick and kills the baby dragon. Fantastic.
Why not?
At which point, so Scanlan and Grog are like in the dragon's lair, and Scanlan's like, Grog, man, you came up with 2 great plans already. Can't you come up with a third? And Grog's like, I don't know nothing. I just punch things. He's like, wait a minute, I punch things. And he realizes that what he saw before, because he tried to punch his way through the entrance, is he can just punch his way through and have the thing collapse, which it in fact starts to do. Grog and Scanlan do escape with the use of Scanlan's hand, as well as Mythcarver. He's now able to shoot a beam of light out of Mythcarver.
Yeah,
is there anything this sword can't do that they almost never use for anything ever, other than weird trinket shit like this? They get out, but for some reason, Grog is absolutely untouched. He's totally fine. Scanlan is what appears to be dead, but we learn later on that he is in fact just unconscious, or maybe in a coma. They said he's out and he won't wake up. He's alive, but he won't wake up. So my guess is he's in a coma of some kind. We're probably going to get from the next episode some type of like interior of whatever's going on in Scanlan's brain.
Oh no. Are we going to have to go into Scanlan's brain?
We're going to go have this. Yes. Now the ultimate moment for me, I think, as far as Pike goes, because Pike is having flashbacks. By the way, when the delirium gas had her, she was seeing Devil Dude. She was seeing the guy that she faced off in hell, and she keeps hearing his voice as well. That's encouraging her. That says the same thing. You have to stand on your own. You have to stop relying on others, in particular one other. And in the penultimate moment, as Thordak realizes his eggs and his progeny have been destroyed, and he calls forth this blue fire through all the cool ass looking neck vents, this giant blue flame he's about to shoot on the entire group. Pike finally channels the armor appropriately by ditching the Everlight. Now, again, I've been pretty critical of the Everlight since season 1. The healing powers, she keeps having these crises of faith, which interferes with her connection to the Everlight, and it's never just like Pike's powers work and everything's great. There's always something dodgy going on.
Yeah.
So it feels like this has been foreshadowed forever, that Pike was finally going to like, no, I'm done trying to rely on this. I'm going to rely on exactly one person, me. I don't think this is going to end well for Pike, but
no, probably not.
It does get the job done here, as she's finally able to bring the fire in from Thordak and release it back at Thordak, nearly killing him, hitting him in the chest, and looking like he's covered in blood. At which point, Raishan shows up. And he's like, good, you kill them. And Raishan's like, no problem, in her dragon form, and turns and poisons the shit out of him. Which, by the way, still doesn't kill Thordak.
No.
Thordak is literally like, I'm going to catch you bitches later. I'm going to get the fuck out of here.
Go back.
Yes, I'm going to go and regroup. At which point, No, Vax is like, absolutely not, and flies after Thordak in his vestments.
Yep.
And I think in this case, kind of like we talked about with Vorogal, Thordak has been softened up significantly at this point,
Yes,
where he's almost at death's door anyway. Vax is able to use his vestment to literally punch his way all the way through.
Yeah, say just fly directly through the dragon.
Yep, and Thordak is no more. I'd like to point out, kids, this is episode 9 of 12 episodes. So the immediate aftermath is, well, what now? In fact, I think, is it Kima? I think someone actually says, what now? So what now? Scanlan is in a coma. By the way, is Kima a paladin? Is that why Kima has a hammer and kind of has powers and plate armor?
I mean, I would assume so.
I think she even did a bit of healing. I just didn't know if she was meant to be a priest like Pike, or if she's meant to be like essentially a warrior priest, which in Dungeons and Dragons is a paladin, basically.
I would assume she's a paladin. She gives very paladin energy.
That's kind of, I didn't put it together, I guess, until I don't think I'd really seen her use any of the healing abilities, which for the paladins I think were called laying on of hands or laying on hands. In Dungeons and Dragons, right? It wasn't, paladins couldn't heal the same way like a priest could, obviously. So they didn't have the same level of healing abilities, but they had some. And she went to heal somebody today. She went to heal the red girl. The red girl's like, I want to feel bad for us, like, leave me alone. I want to be in pain. So, okay, so she's got to be a paladin. And Vax get some closure. Vex breaks down with Vax. They hug each other. They realize that they have finally avenged their mother's death and their village is burning.
Yes.
And now they can move on with their lives and everything's totally cool. The Chroma Conclave has been defeated. Keyleth realizes, she's like, man, I was a dick to Rayshon. Like, this whole time, I was a super piece of shit to Rayshon. So I'm not going to snuggle. I'm not going to snuggle with my boy toy here. I'm going to fly off in my cool ass eagle form, and I'm going to go find Rayshon, who's just conveniently right by Thordak, where he dropped dead, and be like, hey, thanks. I'm sorry. Oh shit!
But you actually were terrible because you're up to something now, and she's got a glowy green circle around Thordak's body and tries to poison Keyleth when she spots her.
Yeah, and I think so. I kept on saying, is she a double agent or is she a triple agent? And it turns out she's kind of neither. She wanted Thordak dead. She was not secretly working for Thordak. She absolutely wanted Thordak dead. And now that has happened, she just used Vox Machina to make that happen. Yeah. So at the end of the day, Rayshon wasn't on Vox Machina's side and wasn't on Thordak's side. Rayshon was on Rayshon's side. So
she sure was.
Kudos to her.
I know it's that way we can see it as the audience and we get the like instigation of conflict again, but I don't know why, since she was apologizing, she wouldn't just be like, well, I appreciate that, thanks, and let Keyleth leave and then complete her ritual.
Well, because then there wouldn't be a plot for the next 3 episodes, Megan. So we gotta
we could have stayed with Rayshon on like as viewers on screen and seen her like green circle disappearing.
That's a good point, but I mean, you would have had to have had at least somebody from Vox Machina know that she had absconded with Thordak's body, so that they would have otherwise they're just gonna be like, hey, cool, party time, and then at least now they're a bit on their guard. I guess. You know what? If season 2 had ended like that and they had gone into season 3 assuming everything was good, and then there was this slow build to Rayshon being the bad, that probably works. But with only 3 27-minute episodes left,
yeah, true.
Besides, you're using logic in a fantasy magic realm. I don't think that's going to work. Turns out Rayshon is bad, and she somehow is able to use what she's been displaying throughout the entire season is some sort of a teleport ability to not just teleport herself, but teleport Thordak's remains.
Yes.
To wherever it is that she wanted to take them for whatever reason she wants to have them. Again, I don't know if it's the stone in his chest that somehow has
maybe like property of it that she'll use to try and get rid of her creeping poison,
maybe, or some type of domineering thing. I mean, she was the one that sort of embedded that stone in him in the first place to release him from the fire realm where he was trapped. So I mean, she already is familiar with it, so maybe she has a specific use for it. I don't know. As we said at the top of the program, a lot happened in these 3 episodes. It kind of feels like pace-wise that the first 6, not that nothing happened in the first 6, but man, things have really started to move now. So much happened in these 3 episodes, right? Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of closure on a lot of interpersonal relationships. We had new interpersonal relationship starts. We had a character death. We had another character that's in a coma. We have the next 4 dragons are now dead, with only 1 dragon remaining. Like a lot happened in the course of these episodes, and I did find these 3 in particular much more entertaining than the first, maybe even in the first 6. Is that fair?
I like
or
the last 3 as well, but I can see what you're doing. Like, we're just getting much more. The pace is picking up exponentially.
It is, but it's not sacrificing the character growth, and it's not sacrificing those smaller character moments that I think are important to keep this show. This show really is about the characters, like we've talked about before. The plot every season is just killing a dragon. The plot, the story element of it is very basic role-playing D&D campaign style stuff. Here's the main quest, here's some side quests. What you end up doing, and you did fairly early, is fall in love with the characters, sometimes certain characters more than others, because each one of them has had some kind of a character moment to help you do that. Again, maybe not Grog a whole lot. Grog is still kind of a little bit the comic relief, as it were. He is still kind of the Drax of the group, but he did show some at least signs of kind of not just being that. But I would love to see some genuine emotion from Grog at some point or another. I know he was sad when it looked like Scanlan was going to die, but not in the same way that like Vex was torn apart when Percy was dying. I know they don't have the same nature of relationship. Don't get me wrong.
No, I know, but the same way, the same sort of way, like back in the first episode of this run when he was freaked out by his the crazy mind gas. He was just like, a library, there's words, why are there no pictures? And this could have been a moment to really actually show something that
like Return of the Herd and the guy that was domineering him and or when he was skinny. Like, there's so many different ways to plumb what would be his fear or his delirium, and instead it was let's use him to crack another joke. But it's kind of, I've kind of come to accept that's what we're doing with Grog at this point. Like I said, he had a lot of his character moments in the second season, so I can forgive them. It's not like they've never given him any. They have. They're just not doing it this season. They're keeping him lighthearted to keep the show lighthearted. I mean, I get it. I don't super love it, but overall, up until these 3 episodes, I got to admit, I wasn't jiving on this season. I felt like the first 2 seasons were way stronger than this current season, but these 3 episodes have kind of brought it back for me. So maybe still not quite where we were in those first and second seasons, but definitely getting back to a point where I'm really looking forward to see these.
I really want to see next week's episodes now.
Having said that, guys, I think that's going to be it. Megan, unless there's anything else that you want to talk about from these 3 particular episodes that you saw that you wanted to highlight?
No, that is good. We can take it out before we talk people's ears off for 40 minutes.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. This one went a little bit long, but as we said, a whole lot happened in these 3 episodes that they jammed in. It was pretty action-packed, and the pace was fast and furious. If there's anything that we missed, though, go ahead and throw it down in the comments below. If there's anything you would like us to talk about on future after shows about Vox Machina, go ahead and throw it in the comments below. Also, if you would be so kind, please hit the like, the comment, and of course, the subscribe. We're very close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers at this point, so I think we're 18 away the last time I saw it. So do us a solid, folks. Go ahead and give us a subscribe, and if you already have, please pass it on to somebody that hasn't, so that we can finally hit that milestone. Otherwise, we will see you next week for the final 3 episodes of The Legend of Vox Machina. Otherwise, stay geeky, everyone.